Kevin Hoare, and I'm here. I'm not Sunny Danforth because Sunny couldn't make it tonight, so I'm jumping in, and I'm jumping in to be here with my good friend Don Anderson and regular co-host on Wednesday. Great to be on with you finally here after a while, Don.
Yeah, it seems like it's been several months, but I'm happy to be here and happy to be here with you. And we're ready to rock and roll on Wednesday, wonderful Wednesday, as Sonny calls it. So we're good to go.
Wonderful Wednesday. And by the way, a lot of people haven't noticed or have noticed, but wondered why no one was talking about it in the news. And they are, which is that pump prices are going up. They're starting to creep up, as you might expect. And it's due to some sort of pipeline maintenance that's going on. You know, those pipelines that Democrats hate and they're trying to shut down? Well, this one just has maintenance. And it's pretty common for gas prices to go up during the summer. But as it turns out, this is just pipeline maintenance. It could have easily been the Brandon administration, but actually, it's just pipeline maintenance.
Maybe the Ruskies are retaliating for that maintenance issue that we gave them about a year ago. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think the Chinese gave us a maintenance issue not long ago as well, because if I recall correctly, we had some pipelines shut down by some cyber criminals out east, and
I forgot about that.
Yeah, but you know, the Brandon administration said, "Don't worry about this. We got everything under control," and they moved on to start the next crises that they could have prevented.
Yeah,
but
we don't need a pipeline, though. Don't need pipelines.
No, we're all gonna just plug into an electric grid, which can't handle what it's got. So that'll all work. Don't worry your pretty little head about that, Don. But it looks like national average is $3.58, and it, as of right now, we are at $4.50 or 60, $4.50, $4.60, a few places $4.70. Yeah, we'll just roll with it here, but you know, you got to hope that someone notices and does something about this in the future so that we don't face this. But if you notice that, you're not alone. It's going up. But there's some big news in DC today, a lot of it actually. And it was hard to figure out where to start. But this one really caught my mind. We're the captive audience, right? And we started doing this show in the middle of the COVID lockdowns, and called it that because we didn't want to be we didn't want to sit here and just sit at home unable to share our thoughts and ideas with others. In fact, people kind of sitting at home waiting to hear a differing opinion from the official government mandates and Anthony Fauci and so on, Kate Brown. But today, a subcommittee in Congress headed up by Chairman Brad Wenstrup from Ohio. It's the House Select Committee on Coronavirus Pandemic. And he slammed the mandates that were instituted during the pandemic as being, quote, unscientific, quote, and said all levels of government, quote, arguably ignored constitutionally protected rights, unquote.
Imagine that.
Unfortunately, federal, state, and local government agencies continued to enact restrictive policies that arguably constitutionally granted individual rights and liberties, ignored those rights and liberties. And he, of course, there was a Supreme Court decision that made it clear that the Constitution is not suspended in times of crises, which I think is a great point. And it's finally time to address this, because we know that people on the left have just been waiting for the golden opportunity to say that they found another crisis. That means that they have to exercise these very powerful mandate powers they thought they had, which they didn't.
Right. Yeah. Well, you can expect them to do it over and over and over again unless something's done to prevent it. So it's great that it's actually being acknowledged. It's actually amazing, given where we've been.
Yeah, I think you can probably say unscientific and unconstitutional to almost everything they do, because when you follow the science on, say, climate change,
Mhm.
they come up with things that are impossible, uh, and say, well, no, this is what you have to do because climate change, and
Yeah.
follow the science. And then they cite something that's unscientific. One of my favorite things today was the famous high school delinquent from Sweden, Greta Thunberg. She she apparently, this is the anniversary of when she said that in 5 years the world will essentially be destroyed because of not immediately halting the use of fossil fuels, causing the demise of our civilization. And looks like she deleted that tweet apparently.
Well, she can join a long list of Nostradamuses that have come up false on that. So, you
That's
know,
exactly right. Yeah, and the other thing that was happening during the pandemic is that people were being canceled and censored for what was described as vaccine misinformation, which today we describe as the truth. We found that a lot of the stuff that we were told was completely false,
Mhm.
or even expressing concerns about what was being said to us was considered immediately, because anything that even shed the slightest bit of doubt or skepticism on the stuff we are being told by so-called official government sources, who must be trusted no matter what in a free and open democracy. That's how things are supposed to work. The government tells you something and you're supposed to believe it unquestioned and be silenced if you try to question it. That's how it works, right? In a constitutional republic with freedom of speech, you're supposed to be silenced. Well, this is what they've been doing for some 3 years,
Yeah. It's
and now it looks like YouTube has gone so far as to remove an interview with a declared presidential candidate, not for the Republican nomination, which is, they do that all the time, right?
Mhm.
But for a Democrat who's running for the nomination, because YouTube classified the information that he was relating. It's a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They classified what he said as vaccine misinformation. So they took his video down.
Oh, and that is absolutely astonishing when you consider that he's a member of the Kennedy family. That's Democratic Party royalty, and we know how much they love royalty. So for them to go against the Kennedy family name tells you just how radically insane these people are. I've often told people this is not the party of JFK. Clearly, it's not the party of RFK, junior or senior. This is something else. This is not the moderate, opposition, if you will, that we grew up on. That party has been usurped by something that is horrendous. I mean, here's a guy who's actually electable. I mean, if you're a Republican and he won, you would say, okay, wish he hadn't won, but I could live with him. That's what most of us would say. And and they absolutely want to destroy the guy. It's truly unbelievable.
Well, Kennedy said, he tweeted Sunday in response, because his video, by the way, is still available on Twitter. And so you can watch the entire video there, which has become a mecca for free speech now
Mhm,
that it's owned by Elon Musk.
mhm,
Uh, but after the video was taken down, because Jordan Peterson, the famous podcaster and professor, who has very interesting things to say, he responded by saying that the platform YouTube had taken upon itself to actively interfere with the presidential election campaign. And Kennedy himself tweeted on Sunday about the video being banned. It may be that YouTube has broken no laws in this blatant interference in the electoral process. In that case, change will only come through public pressure. That's democracy in action.
mhm.
Um, and the real issue for Mr. Kennedy is his regulatory capture and corporate influence over government. He is in favor of properly conducted, unbiased, and transparent safety testing for all vaccines. Well, that's certainly misinformation to want that. And so therefore he should be silenced, because the general public would not want properly conducted, unbiased, and transparent safety testing of all vaccines. We can't have that. That would actually make it impossible for Pfizer to make unlimited amounts of money, and that is against the Constitution in the United States. So, uh,
Yeah, that's
I,
the other one. I mean, not 15 minutes ago, and I used to work for that company, right? And not 15 minutes ago, the most anti big business, anti big pharma, thing you've ever seen was Democratic Party, and now they lobby actively to make that company and companies like it a fortune to
yeah,
basically mandate that you have to buy their stuff. I mean, you have to ask yourself, what happened to that party? It's incredible.
yeah, they used to be the skeptics of big corporations and globalism. Now they're its biggest promoter. And they used to be the ones that they said, the big pharma making money. They've had them up there with big oil and everybody else. And now they're like, you can't disagree with what this company says.
Yeah,
That's against orthodoxy. So
yeah,
shut up.
it's a
Um,
great.
that's what they do.
Yeah, but here's the good news, and I guess we people like us have to resist the urge to say "I told you so." But I'm coming across more and more people who were on the other side of the fence with regard to this whole vax business, who have now watched people they know die and get sick, and actually you can draw the conclusion that the vax is what killed them. I mean, we were saying this a
That's
year or
that's what they've concluded, right? So
right?
we're
Yeah,
not issuing medical opinions here just so that
no,
YouTube doesn't think they can
right,
cancel
yeah,
us.
exactly.
This is what we've heard from people that actually personally.
Yeah, those people are actually saying that got them sick, and I'm just like stepping back, like, hey, you put something into your body that was not, that was not properly studied and vetted. That's what the government did.
And that's all. Robert F. Kennedy is expressing his opinion in a presidential nomination race. That's what he's saying he believes, and they're silencing him. So the silencing has gone pretty far here. And again, I think what we're doing is we're calling out the fact that there's interference with the presidential election,
Mhm.
presidential nominating contest in that case, and there is an impairment of uh, what, or at least there's a real ethical problem that maybe YouTube has, if not a legality issue. They certainly are exercising a curtailment of the First Amendment at a time that maybe we need it the most. And yet they hold enormous, possibly even monopolistic like power over the exercise of that First Amendment in the year 2023. So I don't know where that's going to lead. Um, but I think that's why it's important to have competition. That's why we're trying to get our show also onto Rumble
Mhm.
and other platforms, and why we do stream it to Twitter, because uh, we're just not going to let our free speech be destroyed. That's why we are not captives. We are fighting back against that. That very title we use for the show is
Yeah.
"Break Out of Captivity," and there's some that actually I think are bent on making sure that we stay in a kind of captivity. This would be a virtual captivity of suspended free speech.
Oh, well, I tell you, I think part of the this might be. I don't think it's far out there, but part of let's call it one of the strategic advantages associated with these lockdowns was to force you to be stuck in your home, listening to the big networks, and that's all you listen to is their message. And there's a certain percentage of people that's what they did, and they were completely brainwashed, which is that's what Marxism is all about.
Yeah, and I've been trying to take in as much independent journalism as I can. And one of the only people that was doing this on a regular basis on the larger networks, the larger corporate networks. I mean, I think you see a lot of independent journalism on Newsmax, but the only one on Fox News who was doing this was Tucker Carlson, and that seems to have, in no small part, something to do with the end of his time as a anchor on Fox. And he's been off the air for about a month, although he does go and do his show on Twitter that he wants to do, a personal show, as opposed to the previous Tucker Carlson Tonight Show. But I like the fact that he's got the moxie to keep fighting back. There is another thing that's very interesting that's been going on here, and I'm trying to find the article that talks about it. But as of yesterday or today, I believe it is, the Brandon administration is now officially in violation of a law that was passed by Congress in December and signed into law, actually by President Brandon himself, that requires the declassification and public release of the intelligence information about the sources, the source of COVID-19. And what's concerning about that is that that isn't just like information that's being covered up by, say, a government agency. It is information that explicitly is required under federal law to be released. And the Brandon administration has made an intentional decision to violate federal law. To me, that's a high crime and a misdemeanor. It is a easily qualifies
Mhm.
at this point in time as a impeachable offense. And if he continues it, I say they should do it. Yesterday we talked about this a little bit. He keeps giving us a new reason every day. You know, whether it's influence peddling, or abuse, abusive actions ordered by the Department of Justice and the FBI, um, uh, trying to eliminate your chief political competitor in the presidential race. There's so many different things. Certainly, there's going to be more revelations about the favorable treatment that his son got from the Department of Justice.
Oh my goodness. I was about to mention that. Yeah. I mean, tax fraud and he gets a plea.
Yeah,
That can you imagine if a Republican had something like that? Um, it's
yeah. It's inconceivable that a Republic. Well, we know actually that it's not the case that that's even possible because um, we know that Republicans, while they're getting the book thrown at them for things that may not actually be crimes. We've got a long rap sheet. It should be from one guy where there's video and documentary evidence provided courtesy of himself from a laptop they've had since late 2019 that has turned into a couple of charges that will probably he will see no jail time for. None.
yeah.
That was the revelation yesterday. So we're in a very troublesome time. I think people are starting to lose confidence. I think that even if some things get back on track, the damage to our justice system and our perception, the perception of impartiality of the Department of Justice and the FBI is probably irreparable at this point. And that's a great lead in to our next section here, where a couple of interesting developments happened today. I'll start out with the Durham report. He was John Durham, who conducted this. I think it must have been almost a 3.5 or 4 year investigation into the conduct of the FBI and the CIA and the Department of Justice. And he stated now in open testimony that the FBI, quote, did not sufficiently scrutinize information it received and apply the same standards to allegations it received about the Clinton and Trump campaigns. The FBI was too willing to accept and use politically funded and uncorroborated opposition research, such as the Steele dossier. The FBI relied on the dossier and FISA applications, knowing there was likely material originating from a political campaign or political opponent. It's going to take time to rebuild the public's confidence in the institution. I don't even know if that's possible because that's not the only bad news that we've heard about this. And he said there's plenty of good people that work within the FBI. There's some individuals who clearly expressed a personal bias against President Trump. And though they're excusing this now, so many Democrats are, and they're claiming that Durham himself has been damaged by even accepting the special counsel position in the first place. They were, this is what John Durham said. My concern about my reputation is with the people I respect, my family, and my Lord. I'm
Mhm.
perfectly comfortable with my reputation with them, sir.
Mhm.
And so Democrats are engaging in ad hominem personal attacks against somebody who conducted a thorough 4 year investigation and told the Democrats something they didn't want to hear, which is that the people working on behalf of the Democrats within a system that's supposed to be unbiased and impartial, the Department of Justice and the FBI, in fact, were anything but.
Mhm.
And I don't. What I want to know is when somebody's actually going to go to jail for all of this, or certainly when is some kind of true penalty going to be paid? Is the only place they're going to get justice is at the ballot box, which I have concerns about that too.
Yeah, I think, well, one of the things that's going to be tough, Kevin, I think over the long haul is we're suffering from multi-generational usurpation of the system by a legal profession that's completely woke. They've been going to these woke universities, these woke law schools, and somewhere in the neighborhood of like 90% of them are of this bent, and they're just unable to be impartial. And it's going to probably take a couple of generations to work through that. And so we're just in for a long slog, in my opinion, because of that.
Yeah, and the public is kind of oblivious to this stuff, and if they watch certain news outlets, they have no idea this even happened.
No.
This is official government report brought to Congress, scrutinized by both parties, and one party decided, I'm not going to listen to it. And the other party is saying,
Mhm.
we need to get the word out to folks that these facts have been presented to us that require reform. Fortunately, we are in charge of one um, branch of Congress there. One half of Congress, which is one branch of the government, and that's the House of Representatives. But there's still more stuff coming out here today. Top FBI official made a chilling threat to agents who questioned January 6th cases. So all these cases that are being filed against hundreds of people that happen to be present in the Capitol January 6th have been subject to abuses. And this, according to a whistleblower, which Democrats used to love whistleblowers, they loved it. They said, you interfere with a whistleblower and we will file impeachment against you and we'll seek criminal recourse. But apparently they don't like it when whistleblowers do things like um, uh, call out the decisions that abuse the rights and unfairly and unjustly um, advanced prosecutions against private citizens, some of whom did absolutely nothing to deserve it, but still end up getting one of these raids at their house with armed FBI agents coming to arrest them. And when somebody stepped up to question it, here's what happened. And this has been reported to the Office Inspector General. So the whistleblower has spoken to Congress, but also this abuse has been reported to the Office Inspector General, alleging that FBI Deputy Director Paul Abate told the Bureau's internal critics of the January 6th related cases to seek employment elsewhere and offered to personally address his subordinates agents' concerns. Which is confusing. Like, what is he saying? Say whatever you want to say, but we will. We want you to leave. It's like saying you're going to be fired.
Mm-hmm.
And then he heard that some employees are comparing and contrasting the response to January 6th with the response to the post George Floyd protests and riots in the summer of 2020. And this deputy director told the audience that was listening, according to the whistleblower, that anyone who questions the FBI response or his decisions regarding the response to January 6th did not belong in the FBI, should find a different job or something to that effect. And he then challenged all special agents in charge that if they had an employee that did not agree, the special agents in charge could have that employee call the deputy director personally, and he would set them straight. So some kind of extra legal bully existed within the Department of Justice, who went after people and threatened them. You can imagine being a whistleblower was also pretty dangerous then.
Yeah. Well, it's one of these things where it's I remember as a kid learning about the Eastern Bloc and the Soviet Union and hearing these harrowing stories of the secret police, KGB, kicking your door down in the middle of the night, dragging your family out in the middle of the night, dragging mom or dad off to the gulag. And you thought to yourself, man, I'm so lucky to have grown up and been born in the United States and then lived long enough to see it actually happening here and to see people not really realizing just how serious this is. Because if it could
Yep.
happen to them, it can happen to anybody. And we need to rise up against this. I think one of the greatest things about what I'll call the alternative media, of which you are listening to now, is more and more people are listening to things like this and getting real information and giving them an opportunity to think. Because what they're getting from the national press is not even hearing about this stuff.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Now, there is some really good news here that happened today.
Hmm.
And I do want to make sure that everybody gets to hear this too, which is that the censure resolution that was promulgated to deal with Adam Schiff, it was proposed in the House of Representatives, of which Adam Schiff is a member. And it was put forward because of his quote falsehoods, misrepresentations, and an abuse of sensitive information, such as classified information he claimed to have knowledge of. And
Hmm.
as the chairman, the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, he was one of the group of eight, I think it's called.
Hmm.
It's people who are read in on the most sensitive intelligence that exists that the U.S. government has. They have
Hmm.
the same level because it's a co-equal branch. They have the same level of access to intelligence um, that you would have, say, in the executive branch to people that oversee this intelligence. So he was getting these highly sensitive briefings, and then he was going out and he was saying that there was rock solid proof that President Trump had colluded with Russia. We now know it's a complete lie,
Hmm.
and so the House of Representatives, by a narrow vote of 213 to 209, passed a resolution censuring him. It's essentially a condemnation from the House of Representatives for what he did, and it's worth reading the entire article. But it's also maybe finally a little bit of justice, even though it's more symbolic. Because if you can't condemn something, then you can't solve it if
Hmm.
it's that horrific, and it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tend to. There is a lot of really phenomenal news, when you think about it. I mean, consider the backlash, like these boycotts, if you want to call them boycotts. I think it's people walking away, right? So you look at what's happening to the stock prices and the market cap of Target, of Anheuser-Busch, of Maybelline, of, there's a list of Disney. These companies are getting like destroyed. And that is like awesome because what that means is the center of the country. That doesn't mean both Republicans and Democrats are finally saying enough is enough. That's a really positive sign. So, I think in spite of all this other nonsense we're listening to, the majority of the country rather, is more on our side of the fence than I think we may necessarily even believe. Um,
Certainly, they're becoming aware and mobilized. I still wonder what happens when we get to election day.
mhm,
Mostly because there's people living in an information silo that don't even know. Like um, Disney's first movie with a non-binary character becomes Pixar's worst ever opening weekend. Elemental. That was following two major bombs they had earlier in the year. One was let's see
mhm,
what was it called, Strange World,
mhm,
which is Disney's first openly gay main character. Which I don't know.
mhm,
I mean, they're welcome to make whatever they want. They don't. People are
mhm,
not obligated to like it.
mhm,
And then Lightyear, which featured a same-sex kiss amongst cartoon characters, which just doesn't seem like it's the job to do this of a corporation that wants to make money off of entertaining kids. They've decided
mhm,
to go into the mode of woke um, sort of promotion.
But
Well,
here's the
it's got
thing. Yeah,
principles.
you have a president, and that's one thing. But you have a president who's bringing these people to the White House, honoring them on the White House lawn. And I'm sure you saw the thing where the guy run across the lawn. He's cross dressed. He's got his shirt off, topless, running across the lawn. There's no way you can not tie that to the Democratic Party. I mean, they're marketing it themselves. So
Yeah, that's not like some sort of, oopsie mistake. No, this is
yeah,
what they
it's not a
thought would be a
Republican.
great thing,
Yeah, it's
right?
not a Republican ad campaign. That's what they're doing. And
Yeah.
I just think I think the majority of the country is gonna like, assuming we have a fair election. That's always the big assumption here. I don't think they're buying it.
Well, here's something, going from one set of conspiracies to the next, which turn into reality within shorter and shorter. Like it used to be a year, then it's 6 months, then it's 2 months, then it's probably just days. But here's one that you're going to hear more about. So there's a company called BlackRock. It owns a substantial share of Google. It owns a whole bunch of other companies. I believe it's either BlackRock or Blackstone. I think it's BlackRock, and
It's
they're
BlackRock. It's
they're
BlackRock.
both companies that are sort of cut from the same cloth here in terms of what they've been up to with the ESG and all that stuff. But they're also using their power for political purposes. And BlackRock, I think, owns part of Fox News, even.
Mhm.
And so they might be the largest owner of assets in the world. And one dude got stung by the O'Keefe Media Group. James O'Keefe, who has been doing this for years, apparently got an undercover journalist, got a guy, a recruiter for a multi-trillion-dollar asset management firm. That's what BlackRock is. He told this undercover journalist that BlackRock can, quote, run the world, unquote, by controlling the wallets of politicians like senators and even the president of the United States. So the recruiter honestly believes. And it's not who the president is, it's who's controlling the wallet of the president, he said. And he acknowledged that his company is one that controls people's fates. He said, the guy said, you've got 10,000, 10K, $10,000. You can buy a senator. He also said that war is real effing good for business. And what's frightening about this is this story is actually being blocked and covered up by entities like Google and YouTube, who are partially owned by BlackRock. And so there's a lot of concern that maybe the fixes that this company is a real problem. And there's something that I follow pretty closely called Stoic Finance. That guy has been talking about this company and also Blackstone, which is apparently a company that has been, let's put it this way, pretending not to be bankrupt, but it won't pay its bond holders. And it won't let people who invested in it withdraw their money while they sell off every asset they can. And the people inside the company are trying to get their assets out of it. Blackstone, the largest owner of real estate in the world, apparently, cut from the same cloth, swinging its political muscle around and also getting covered up. Those two companies are highlighted by Stoic Finance. I recommend everybody really take a moment to watch what this guy does on Stoic Finance.
Mm-hmm.
He does a great job. I've been hearing about this for months. O'Keefe has now broken this story, and it's been seen 10 million times on Twitter. However, search engines like Google appear to be suppressing whether or not this story is even heard or found in searches by regular folks. So, just like we were talking about, if Democrats are fine with this, then they're fine with big corporations that they like who do their bidding.
Sure. Well, think about it. Just again, what's plausible? Is it really plausible that a company like Anheuser-Busch would be that stupid? I just don't think it's plausible. And if you do something that's stupid, you respond to fix it. But they haven't, which tells you that there's something else going on.
There
Uh,
is something kind of sinister happening there. It's not fully explained. Sometimes people do really dumb things in corporations and then they try to stand by them because they're more afraid in some cases of what someone will do to withdraw um, investment in their company than they are of consumers who don't want to buy their product anymore.
sure. Or maybe something even more sinister, like maybe there was a trip down to Epstein's Island. I mean, hey, with as insidious as all this stuff is, it's all open for discussion.
Yeah, or it should be, and that's why we need free speech more than ever.
Yeah.
Um, well, why don't we shift a little bit over to stuff happening here more locally, and kind of get to the close out our show with local stuff. So
Is there anything weird in Portland? You mean there's nothing weird in Portland?
there is, but what's fascinating tonight is that as of sometime in the middle of the day today, the Oregon Legislative Information System, known as OLIS, um, crashed. It crashed, and it was actually not possible for a while to find out what was happening with bills in Salem. I can post right now the Twitter post from this, and information systems status alert. And it was I don't know if it's a response to a cyber attack or just a general system failure, or I heard something about a firewall update, but it just so happens that it affected, and the entire legislative information system crashed. So while people are actually trying to find out what's going on, as hundreds and hundreds of bills fly through the legislature in the last week, now that the walkout has ended,
Mhm.
you can't find out.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because Dirk Vanderhart with Oregon Public Broadcasting said, "Well, this is kind of not ideal timing," but really suggested it was it was just a mere coincidence.
Mhm.
It's just a mere coincidence. Just believe
Oh,
that.
I'm sure. I believe it. I believe it. 100%.
But I think the problem is the more this happens, the more it becomes hard to trust what we're hearing. And so I actually did respond to this. I said, Dirk, isn't it isn't the ideal time? Which political actors need transparency versus which ones are perfectly happy if no one outside the building, the Capitol building, can find out what is happening inside of it for a few hours or more? Maybe the ones who drop 112-page amendments to gut and stuff bills, which is what they did with House Bill 3409, which, by the way, passed the House of Representatives today, and the State House of Representatives. That bill, though they did amend it slightly yesterday, and it was a minor improvement, but it's actually kind of a full-on Green New Deal bill. And the purpose of the bill is to make it so that the state government ends up with enormous new powers that allow them to go and make it harder to use natural gas in homes and businesses, for example. It's very troubling. It shouldn't be a bill that just sails through. It's going to get a hearing apparently in the Senate. So if people want to go follow, I'm trying to find it here. I got so much garbage on my computer right now. But if they want to go and find out what the latest is with that, OLIS is back up now.
Mm-hmm.
Not always easy to find the information. And of course, maybe it's crashed again because it's giving me the hourglass. Let's see. Come on. Let's go. Yes, there it is. Okay. So it passed the House today while we were having these problems. It's been sent to the Senate, the Rules Committee, and they're going to shove it to the floor, and there's a possible hearing and work session to be held on it. I hope it doesn't make it. I hope the bill dies. It should die. It's the pieces of 14 other bills they couldn't get passed, shoved into one bill that was just supposed to study the problem. And now it's going to go to the Senate, and it's got just a few days to make it through.
Mhm.
Do you think there will be a thorough vetting of that bill in the Senate in this hearing?
Yeah, well, we know how things roll, right?
Do you think you and I will get a chance to testify on that one if we so wanted to?
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Even if you spent all the time to drive down to Salem to make sure that you got on the docket to testify,
Yeah,
you're going to get 2 minutes.
yeah, right.
Even the biggest experts who could actually correct all the fallacies within this bill, 2 minutes.
See,
Two
this is why
minutes.
I think it was John Adams had that famous statement about a constitutional republic can't work with an immoral people.
Yeah.
Um, and here's why: because you get too many people who lack total principles and morality. These are the kinds of things that you have happen.
Well, and while you're on that point, by the way, it just so happens that immorality seems to be, and stupidity. Don't ever discount just how much stupidity there could be in addition to immorality. But there is a bill waiting for its chance to get through the legislature that will spend $100,000 to study the viability of legalizing prostitution in Oregon. And the whole purpose of it is because they think they want to study it because somebody thinks that we could actually come up with a better decision than the current state of affairs. And the last time they came up with an idea like this, it was called Measure 110. Now, Measure 110 turned out to be the biggest, most catastrophic and devastating bill to addiction and homelessness that you could have had. And they think that they will probably get less trafficking of women and children, and somehow I guess less prostitution. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing about that.
If they package this.
Yeah, they're not enforcing the law anyway. So, so them passing a law saying it's like legal doesn't change anything because this is out there being done unenforced as it is. I mean, that's the first thing. I mean, I'm not saying they should, but they're not enforcing the law anyway. And then the other side of that was I saw an article the other day with the current mayor of Portland actually suggesting that maybe that law you just referenced was a bad idea, and maybe we should crack down on like drug use. You just want to slap your forehead.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
you
know?
do. You really do. And I guess maybe on the heels of this, we should mention that that we also but there is a shout out we need to give to somebody here. I haven't found the story that we're looking for on the decriminalizing prostitution. I thought I had it handy, but it's somewhere here. However, we should give a shout out to our to the Republicans and independents that decided not vote on House Bill 2002 in protest. And I just posted the listing of that, and you can see who those folks are. And it's important because we should encourage the effort to protest this stuff. You can see that there were 13 representatives who said, hell, I'm not even going to bother to be part of the voting on this.
Mhm.
And we need to say attaboy and attagirl when they do the right thing like that too.
Right, absolutely.
So I know that we had that story about the food cart owner that got assaulted. You mentioned about that. They said the family says the attack may have been racially motivated. We know that they didn't present any evidence of that from what I can see.
Yeah, they just said it.
They just said it. Now, if it's true, then would that fit potentially with something we do know is often the case, which is that many of the people who are homeless and commit crimes and often addicted to drugs might be white. Are they admitting that there's a lot of racist homeless people?
Well, here's the thing. And by the way, I don't know if the audience saw the pictures, it was horrific. I mean, that guy got like
Yeah,
just,
he
it
really
was
did.
horrific. It doesn't matter, it's illegal to beat people up, no matter what color they are. And so this desire to keep pimping this race message, is insane. The other side of this too is what percentage of the population is white in Portland? it's got to be like 90. Well, let's reverse that. What percent of the population in Portland is black? It's like under 5%. So
Yeah.
if somebody's going to beat you up, if you're going to be in that situation, who's likely to do that? Who's likely to be a white criminal who's out of their minds? That's the nature of the geography. What is shocking about that? Um, this person
That's
was
exactly.
motivated. They're motivated by the insanity of being on these drugs. It doesn't matter what color you are; you're a target in those geographies. If you are have a profile where you look like you can be like taken down, these people are going to take you down.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Well, and actually, just returning to that story about prostitution, this article in Coin News said not everyone agrees with this spending this money to study it. Republican Senator Fred Gerard said it bothered him. Said budget note number 7 talks about decriminalizing prostitution. I think we should have learned from 110 that that sort of philosophy, in my opinion, everybody has the right to their opinion. It just doesn't work. But Elizabeth Steiner, my unfortunate state senator, says she doesn't deny that Measure 110's implementation was flawed, but compared sex work study to how deliberate Oregon was with the study and decriminalization of psilocybin, the mushrooms. So she tried to redirect everybody to that. And says, we're really trying to get really good evidence to say what is the right path for the state to follow. They always blame the implementation. It just was imperfect implementation. It wasn't a bad idea. We just didn't have enough money and enough time to really screw things up, I think is maybe the best way to put it. But
that's what the Marxists think. Well, Stalin, Hitler, Pol Pot, those guys just didn't implement it the right way. Idi Amin, they just didn't do it right.
No, we've only killed 100 million people. Let's repackage it and see if we can do it again. Yeah, I know. And so here's a couple of last stories I just want to throw at folks here that really put us on this same path, which is there's a story out of Washington State, just to the north, which does the vote by mail as well. Said a foreign national has managed to avoid prosecution after illegally voting in Washington State 28 times. And this is what the person at the who at Clark County elections said. He says, unfortunately, there is no nationwide tool that is made available to election administrators to review and ensure a person who has completed a voter registration application is actually a U.S. citizen. Garber is the name of the person who wrote in the email. Mm-hmm. When a voter registration application is filled out, we are required to view the 4 corners of the application and believe the information to be true and accurate. There is a declaration that must be signed and states that they declare that they are U.S. citizens and that the information on the voter registration form is true. So you're just supposed to believe them. And then somebody actually lies and votes 28 times and they avoided prosecution. What's the point? That puts the entire lie to this. And there was another story that I thought I'd just tell people about, and everybody can go read it because we should try to wrap up here, is that 7 months after the 2022 elections, U.S. counties are still uncovering election day problems. So all these problems exist with the system. This thing about foreign nationals legally voting and not getting caught, even after 28 times, and then suffering no consequence for doing it. Mm-hmm. And they're finding there's even more problems with the system. But they declare the winners of these elections, and then all these problems never get addressed. Nothing is ever fixed with it. They just tell you that it's misinformation. So I just posted 2 things. If someone wants to call it misinformation, they can go to read the stories. Mm-hmm. They cite chapter and verse and facts.
Yeah, it's wow. What can you say?
Well, we just got to fight harder and win by overwhelming numbers. But we also have to do the work that we're doing here tonight, which is make people aware of what's happening. Yeah. Thank you for joining me here tonight, Don. It's been great being on here with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. I'm looking forward to the next one, and that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it as always, and looking forward to the next one.
Well, everyone, please share the show with everyone you can. Don and I, we did this work, and now it's your job. Let everyone know. Share it, as Lori said, with our entire nation. Everyone needs to know what's happening here, and we often screw up things here in Oregon and Portland first. So it's a big chance to warn everyone else in the country.
Yeah, we're the early warning system.
Exactly. We'll be back Friday with the next episode of The Captive Audience. I think I don't know. I hope Sunny is on. I don't remember the schedule, but it should be Sunny and David as usual. And we wish everyone a fine evening and enjoy the